Hey there, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Learn BMX Racing. This episode is all about how to become a pro BMX racer and get sponsors. And I have to thank one of my viewers for requesting this topic. And he also asked about explaining the rankings of racers, and I thought that was a great idea. I realized that there are no videos online which explain this stuff, so let's clarify all three of these topics. How to become a BMX pro, how BMX skill rankings work, and how to get sponsored. So, first, how to become a pro rider. Well, believe it or not, the way that you become a pro is by saying that you are one. Seriously, I know that sounds crazy, but that is truly all you need to do. You don't need to have sponsors. You don't need to win a certain quantity of races. You don't need to make money racing. You don't need to be riding for a certain number of years. No, you just call yourself a pro and you are one. Now, I know that sounds bizarre, but I actually emailed USA BMX to confirm this, and it is true.
Here is a copy of the letter that I got from Ryan McGrath, and as you can see, yep, all you got to do is say you're a pro, and you're a pro.
And check this out on my own profile on the USA BMX website.
Right here you can see if I go to renew a membership, you can see that I'm a novice, but I can just click on Vet Pro, and that's it. If I decided to continue my membership renewal that way, I would be a professional rider. So that's all you gotta do is switch from novice, you can jump straight to pro.
There are two very good reasons to not declare yourself a pro if you don't genuinely have a professional skill set. Now, first of all, the price of your annual membership will double. So in 2023, amateur riders pay $80 a year and pros pay $160 a year. The other big reason is because you will no longer be allowed to compete in local district races. Now, if you've been around BMX for a while, you may have seen pro-am motos at some of the bigger races, and those are the only types of races where professional riders are allowed to compete against amateur riders. So, if you decide to become a pro, you won't be allowed to race your local track in weekly races anymore. You can still show up for practice, but you can't race the amateur riders after you turn pro. So, you can literally turn pro anytime you want, but it's smart to wait until you have earned an expert ranking and start to at least dominate some expert races. So, what about all the rankings? I mean, how exactly do those work?
Before you understand rankings, you need to understand the organizations which govern BMX racing. Now, when racing at your local track and competing in district, state, regional, and national races, you will need to be a member of USA BMX. USA BMX controls all the rules and regulations of BMX racing in the United States. Now, if you want to participate in international races and compete in World Cup events, or you aspire to be in the Olympics, the rules and regulations of those races are controlled by the UCI. Now, every single country has a national governing body for cycling, and members of those organizations can compete in UCI races. So in Switzerland, you would need to join a group called Swiss Cycling. In Germany, you would need to join the German Cycling Federation. And in the United States, you would join USA Cycling. The skill rankings of USA BMX and USA Cycling are slightly different. So let's look at USA BMX first, since USA BMX is what 90% of you are going to be racing with. Now, in terms of rankings, you are either an amateur or a professional. So let's go over the amateur rankings first. The 3 amateur rankings in USA BMX are novice, intermediate, and expert. And each of those rankings also have age categories. There is 5 and under, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. up to 16, and then there's 17 to 20 and 21 to 25 and so forth. Now, a novice has to win 10 races in order to earn an intermediate ranking. An intermediate boy must win 20 additional races for a total of 30 wins to become an expert. An intermediate girl needs to win 10 additional races for a total of 20 wins to become an expert. And then finally, you also have the 24-inch cruiser class, but there is no skill rankings in cruiser, it's just ages. So now let's move on to professional racing. So you have to be at least 17 years old to turn pro, and 17 and 18-year-olds are called juniors. And from 18 to 29, you are a pro, and then when you're over 30, you are called a vet or veteran pro. That covers amateur and professional racing on the national level with USA BMX, but things run a little differently when you compete on the international stage with USA Cycling and the UCI. The UCI has 2 amateur skill levels called Challenge and Masters, and each of them have age categories. In addition, there is a challenge level for 24-inch cruisers, which also categorizes riders by age. Now, professional level riders are in a group called Championship, and they are divided into 3 categories called Junior for 17 and 18-year-olds, Elite for people over 23, and then there's also a very odd name called Under 23 for people who are between 19 to 22 years old. So that was a lot of information, but just rewind and pause the video, and these graphics should be pretty easy to understand.
Finally, how do you get sponsors? Well, let me tell you a little secret, kids. No one actually has a sponsor. Okay, let me explain. You see, here's the problem with sponsorships. Typically, little kids will start talking to sponsored riders, and they will ask how much something costs, right? Like, how much was that bike? How much are those rims? And the sponsored rider then explains, oh, my sponsor gave it to me for free. Then the little kid freaks out and is amazed that someone called a sponsor is giving away free bikes and parts. And these kids become obsessed with wanting to get sponsors so they can get free stuff. But that's not how it works, okay? The sponsored riders are lying to you. There's no such thing as free merchandise. Sponsored riders are actually salespeople who get paid in merchandise, okay? Remember that. Sponsored riders are salespeople who get paid in merchandise. They aren't getting anything for free. You see, sponsors expect their team athletes to be evangelists for the brand. You know, talk to other people about it. Brag about the quality of your sponsor's products. You become a representative for that company. So, if you want to get a sponsor, you can't just be a good rider. You also need to be personable and sociable. You need a good reputation and be influential to other riders. If you're a great rider, but you're also really introverted and shy, you probably won't find a sponsor. If you're a great rider, but you have a bad reputation and you're kind of a jerk, well, you probably won't find a sponsor either. Now, do you see how sponsorships work? Sponsored riders are expected to promote their sponsors. So when you become sponsored, you're not getting anything for free. You are an employee. You have a job. You work for your sponsor in sales and promotions. They just pay you in bike parts instead of money. Now, since I'm not sponsored, that also gives me an advantage in that I can be totally honest. like when I make these videos. For example, I can criticize big BMX companies like Chase and Haro and GT and Redline for not making their bikes in the United States. But if I was sponsored by one of those companies, I'd have to keep my mouth shut. I wouldn't be allowed to criticize them. So being sponsored might force you to be a little disingenuous. So how do you get a sponsor? Well, I just told you. Whether it is BMX or any other sport, sponsors all expect the same thing from you, okay? First, you have to excel at your sport. And second, you have to be personable and outgoing and not controversial. And third, because sponsors expect you to promote their products, you have to participate in your sport a lot and maintain a decent level of exposure within the sport. Now, if you can prove that you have those three traits, start reaching out to companies you'd like to ride for and see what they say. Maybe one of them will agree to sponsor you.
Here is a quick look at what sponsors are looking for. So here is the Sunday Bikes website, and as you can see right here, under their question of how can I get sponsored, they tell you exactly what I just told you. It says, remember the golden rule, if you're the biggest jerk to others, then it doesn't matter if you're the absolute best rider in the world, because no sponsor wants to deal with that. So you can't just be a good rider, you also have to be a good person. Time to Shine is a bike shop that also offers sponsorships, and you can see down here they talk about if you meet our core values and expectations as a rider, then they'll consider sponsoring you, and they want everyone to be responsible and show respect to people they encounter both on and off the track. So again, emphasizing your character and not just your skill. Here we have the Crouppy website. Is it Crouppy or Cruppy? I think it's Crouppy. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, here it says, you have to be intermediate or expert, so you got to be a pretty good rider. You're required to wear the jersey and ride the frame, so you have to be out there promoting stuff. And like I said, you have to participate, right? You need to do 12 races per year at least, so you have to be out there getting some exposure. You have to submit a race report, including photos. And once again, they emphasize down here, be polite and helpful, and you can't be unsportsmanlike, right? So it's more than just being a good rider. There's a lot of other stuff that goes with it. You have to be participating. You have to be promoting the stuff. And you also should be careful and make sure that you have a real sponsorship, because a real sponsor pays you, supports you, gives you gear. There are a lot of companies out there these days which offer these discount packages, these sponsorship packages, where you actually have to pay them. So for example, for this $600 package, you get a frame and you get a jersey and stuff like that, but this isn't really a sponsorship. Even though they're calling it a sponsorship, this isn't a sponsorship, this is just a discount package. So make sure that you're actually getting what you think you're getting, okay? A sponsor is never going to ask you to pay them money. All right, if you're paying for it, then it's just a discount package. It's not an actual sponsorship.
And let me be clear, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from getting a sponsor. It's quite the opposite. I encourage you to give it a try. If that is your goal, I support that ambition 100%. Get sponsored, find a company to support you, find a company who believe in. Being a sponsored rider can be really cool and an awesome experience. I just don't want kids thinking that sponsorships equals free stuff. No, that is not true. Sponsorship equals getting a job working for the brands that you like. And don't forget, kids, whether you become a sponsored pro or you remain an amateur novice, have fun either way, because your good old days are happening right now.